You know what I was known for in high school? Cutting off my jean shorts.
Howdy. Welcome to the BeatiDudes podcast, a podcast. Oh, yes, there we go. Yes. A podcast for Christian men seeking to serve the Lord while growing in holiness with each other, holiness and humor, in fact. And my name is Paul Kolker. I am joined by Jeff Scheffelbein.
Howdy.
And Nick Besner.
What's up, everybody?
And today we have a phenomenal guest, the one, the only, the magician, Giancarlo Bernini.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to be here.
Is he really here?
I think he just appeared.
I mean, I feel like it's such a beautiful illusion, but you're in our office.
This is, it's
Studio.
beautiful in here. Look at this. It's all decked out with,
We have a bookcase.
And more books and a lot of books
real
in
books,
here. A lot of real
books.
books and, yeah.
But there is one that if you pull it, the whole
The
thing.
whole thing. I was about to,
Hey,
Hogwarts.
are you going by a stage name, Giancarlo Bernini?
Yeah, no, that's my real name. My parents named me that, and then they were like surprised that I decided to be a magician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were fated.
No.
Yeah, there's no other route for Giancarlo Bernini.
Right, that's just it. It's just, this is my destiny.
Yeah, it would have only been worse if your last name had already been Copperfield.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were your parents magicians?
Yeah, no. My dad knew one card trick, and then he showed me that when I was 9, and then I kind of snowballed from there.
Is that really where it started?
That's really where it started.
Card
With
trick?
one
wow.
card trick, and then again they keep asking me like, oh, "Who would have known?" I'm like, "You did this to me. You've been. It's like you planned it. Like you put little breadcrumbs in my life."
Incredible. Did
That's
they ever do
awesome.
the part where their thumb disappears?
Oh yeah, no. I had some friends at school, and it still happens when he's like, "Oh, can you do this thing?" and they do it to me. So then I'm always like, "Oh, let's switch thumbs," and it's great.
Amazing.
Whose
incredible.
thumb do you have currently?
I don't know. I lost track.
I love it. Seriously, tell us through this journey. Well, first of all, there's not many people who know a magician personally.
Yeah.
We all know you, and I feel very cool knowing a magician. Do you go by magician? Is that what we call you?
Yeah, and that's always just like, oh, you're Catholic, so are you like an illusionist or I'm like, I don't care enough about the label, right?
Sure.
Like I go by magician because that's what everyone and weirdly enough in the magic industry, when you use the word illusion or illusionist, you're talking about a very specific kind of magic trick. So I feel weird calling myself an illusionist.
And then, then you don't do illusions.
And I don't do, and I don't do, but even for churches, it's like, no, everything I'm doing is an illusion. You have to say that. But when you, in magic, in the magic industry, when you say illusions, normally you're talking about big box stuff. So cutting people in half, making people disappear, making elephants appear. That's what we refer to as illusions. So I always feel very weird. I'm like calling myself an illusionist because I'm like, no, I'm what magicians call stage or parlor magic is what I do. But yeah, anyway, this is all technical. Yeah.
No, yeah,
This
but
is all jargon, but there's a whole, yeah.
Just
But
like
magic-
just like any industry.
Yeah.
Right.
But magic is not, so you're saying like when you're talking to churches, you're not saying, oh, I actually cast spells or what have you. Like,
Of course not. It's like, no, there are what I like to say is there's a secret behind all of this. This
Yes.
is what I like to say. I like to, and there's a weird place of, I hate that moment where you have to, because you have to. There's always that weird fear of like, oh, a magician in a church, and for me, it's like, no, it's a really cool art form, and it is, illusion in the normal sense of the word, but there's this weird feeling of, like when Peter Pan walks on stage, if you're watching a play, he doesn't have to constantly remind the audience he's not really Peter Pan. Like,
touche.
That would have helped me.
so there's like this weird feeling of like, well, I don't like having to constantly tell the audience everything I'm doing is fake. So there's very nuanced ways that I've learned to try to do that. And there's one point in the show where I talk about what an optical illusion is, and I demonstrate it. And I say something like, everything in the show is a version of this, whether it's optical or psychological or something in between. And then hopefully that kind of lays that groundwork of like, yes, everything I'm doing is not real, but we don't have to dwell on that. And also I don't have to use the word illusionist.
Yeah, and have you found in this exploration and this growing up, you're obviously a man of faith, and I hope people that are watching get to follow you and learn more about that. But the connection between what you're doing on stage and faith. I'd love a reflection on how that works out for you.
Yeah. Well, there's two different ways that plays out. One of them being that magic is a really cool art form. The behind the scenes stuff that you don't get to see, the secret side. There's so much creativity, so much cleverness that it's such a cool art from that side of it. And in my brain, anywhere that there is art and creativity is a place where the Holy Spirit is at work. Because I always like remembering that inspired comes from in the Spirit. So anything that's kind of like inspirational or creative or anything like that, there's good in that, and God's at work there. So it's the uniqueness of not a lot of people think of magic as an art form the way that you think of like dance or painting or music or anything like that. But it is in a sense, right? And on the other side is there are things in the faith that can be explained really well through analogies or examples in a magic show.
Yeah.
I recently did a talk on what it means, what the mysteries of faith means. You hear at Mass, the mystery of faith. What is the mystery of faith? What does that mean? And a magic show is a really cool way to talk about mystery, because that's kind of everything you're seeing is a mystery, and you're kind of okay with it. You're not struggling with the mystery. You're not like, I hate that I can't understand this. You're like, I kind of love that I can't understand this.
That's awesome.
Like an openness to the transcendent, or the openness to the part that you can't see.
To being swept up in something that's beyond what you're aware of, maybe.
Right. And kind of using like truth, beauty, and goodness as a way to kind of navigate what's currently an incomprehensible thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that it reminds me of that definition of mystery. It's not something we can't know anything about. It's something we can't know everything about.
For sure. And even the sense that maybe you can understand it, but maybe it's not designed to be understood. It's not something that God's like, okay, if you understand it, that's great. If you don't understand it, that's great. I didn't do this so that you would understand it. I did this because it has a purpose, whether you understand it or not. Whether you understand it is secondary to what this is. And that's kind of like a magic trick.
Yes. I was going to say that, but I wanted you to say it.
Thank you.
Giancarlo, is there many people running around in this niche of Christian magician?
Yes and no.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery.
I don't know what to do with this.
There's a lot of Christian magicians, tons of them.
Just not good
in
ones.
The world. no, and they're great, and there are some really
great.
Yeah.
No, there are some really phenomenal ones. In the Catholic world specifically, there's hardly any at all. And so I remember growing up, being into magic, being Catholic, and there's these Christian illusionists, and they're always going to my friends' churches, but they're never coming to mine. And so it's kind of it's similar enough to, yes, sharing the gospel through magic is a common thing. There's a lot of people out there doing it. In the Catholic world specifically, kind of a smaller niche.
Yeah. And do you, in your magic, do you say abracadabra?
I don't.
It's a good question.
No, it's a great question.
Thank you.
I don't, only because there's I guess I just never have. But
I don't because I won't.
Why? Now I'm thinking about like why haven't I? No. There's a cool moment in the show where I use a magic word, and we have some fun. It's like a joke with the audience, which you have to see the show to understand. But it's one thing that I was reading recently was the words hocus pocus originally come from the Latin words of consecration.
Go on.
During the Mass. You're like, yes. So back in the day, magicians were trying to find magic words, and they're trying to figure out what is the closest thing to a magic word that people actually believe in.
Yeah.
And back, in medieval Europe or whenever this was, it was like, oh, well, people believe that when a priest says these things, and they're not Catholic, they don't understand, but they're like, oh, when a priest says these things, something magical happens. So they parodied the Latin words of consecration. I think it's my Latin's not great, but hocus meam corpus, or hocus corpus meam, something like that.
That's pretty close. Yeah.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they took, they're like, oh, it sounds like, and then they just said hocus pocus, and that's where that originally comes from.
Wow.
My actual question about abracadabra is because I heard that one time, but I got my I got my magic terms confused. So thank you for remembering.
Were you going to
trying
get me to tell us?
I was trying to get you to that story, but I was like, wait, is it abracadabra?
Oh. No, abracadabra is I create as I speak, which I've wondered about using that to talk about creation ex nihilo and like, the fact that God can create from nothing and nothing else happens like that. No one else and nothing else comes from nothing. Only God can do that. But I haven't figured out how to tie that together. Because the weird thing is like it's also like I don't know if that hocus pocus thing is a great thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big fan that they parodied the words of consecration. I don't think that's
Giancarlo.
Right.
Can you, I don't care where you are next time you're doing tricks. Can I say that doing tricks? I don't know what you do. What do you call? I want you to yell transubstantiation. Just see how it goes. That you might get struck by lightning, but
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe add that.
That'd be a great trick. Just
Add that to the list of what not to do.
right.
Jeff is good for ruling out certain options.
well,
that lightning strike would be awesome to watch.
but here's the thing: is figuring out how to use magic to share the gospel is also an interesting craft, because sometimes you'll get a youth minister who will reach out and say, hey, can you come and do a trick? We're talking about miracles. Can you come and do a trick where you like turn water into wine? And I was like, that's the worst thing I could do.
Yes.
The whole point of this is being like, Jesus can actually do this thing. If you bring a magician in who can also do the thing, that hurts the message entirely.
Yeah, that's not what happened. It was real.
Right, exactly. It was
Yeah.
real then. I can replicate it in a fake way, but that's not helpful to anyone. So figuring out where magic serves to share the gospel and where it doesn't is also an interesting thing, because there are connections that I can make that are not helpful connections, that are not based in truth. Or
It's a
not,
fine line.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
like you could leave an impression in somebody's mind of like, oh, well, it could just all be a trick.
Exactly. And that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah. Wow.
It makes me think of you, the impressionist, Paul. He's the illusionist. You're the impressionist.
What are you talking about? Yum.
Well, I got to say, when you're on stage, you do this great combination of kind of wit and humor and tying it back when you're in an audience that's ready for it to the gospel, to faith, to miracles. How have you found humor playing into this evangelization, this call to the apologetics of how you're able to face the world as a public figure?
Yeah. I mean, I think humor is just key to getting people to relax, right? To just feel at home, feel comfortable. And it's also not something that comes naturally to me. I am not good, so I actually started taking the improv classes that
Yeah,
Paul
it's pretty cool.
recommended. Yeah.
He's shown up at some improv
Awesome.
classes.
Because I'm not great at it. I like scripted. Which is why I like performing, because I'm in control of the conversation. And if I tell a joke, it feels like I might be making it in the moment, but I promise most people when they come on stage, they all do the same thing. They all make the same mistakes, and I know what joke to make because it's worked a million times. So that's actually something that I've had to work on, and that's why I'm in those improv classes, because I want people to feel comfortable. I want to be able to and feel like I'm connected to them, like I'm not going through motions on stage.
Well, and it's pretty cool because he worked with Oliver, who's one of our guys who actually does magic.
Well,
for
tell
fun.
everybody your background real quick.
Oh,
So-
yes. Yeah. So I perform improv every weekend with a group called 4-Day Weekend, but I also do some of my own gigs and things like that as well. And so I've basically been doing improv off and on for the last 20 years.
And there's a training component that you can bring in Giancarlo.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's principles that make for better improv or not, or make for better jokes or not. And so Giancarlo's actually gone and done some of the classes that we offer, and they're free classes. And he's gone and done it with 4-Day Weekend in Fort Worth. And
They're awesome. Yeah.
and specifically Oliver over there does some magic tricks and knows a lot of magicians, and so the two of them connected and had kind of a meeting of the minds.
Yeah, that was great. That was really, because I didn't even know that when I took the class that he was into magic.
Well,
Yeah, when you said you were going over there, I was like, ooh, this could be good. Oliver might be teaching that class.
Spicy.
When Nick and I saw you on stage at a recent event, you were super funny. So I'm going to credit the improv training a little bit, and also your hard work. And also, just remember, your parents didn't name you Groucho Bernini.
Right.
So that's not your calling. You're just going to show up for it. You catch that one? It's a Gen X reference to Groucho Marx.
For all of our 40-plus
Good
members of the
night.
crowd.
Yeah, well,
Right over my head, Jeff. I'm a millennial.
I'm speaking. There's like 8% of our listeners who totally got that. Well, speaking of humor, we want to play a game with you.
Yes.
But you're going to be the judge on the first round, and when we get to the bonus, you're going to be a participant in a game that has a new name, Paul.
Ooh.
That's right. In honor of the BeatiDudes, we call this Blessed Are the Joke Makers.
Ooh.
They shall inherit the points.
That's it. That is it. We'll see how that
You
holds
can
up.
tell there was a lot of brainstorming to get to that one. So,
Oh, yeah.
No, I appreciate that.
judging your face, I don't know if we finished the brainstorming yet.
Yeah, we might just be on the first iteration. Here we go.
Jeez.
All right, but so what's going to happen
Improv
here?
laughter, Bernini.
Yeah, he's real good. He's real good at that, acting. Okay, so the first up, what's going to happen is I'm going to read a character card and then a question card that goes with it. And we all have to answer that question as that character. So we got to kind of take on a new persona, a new face for a sec here. So put some time on the clock and we'll have a chance to think of this. It's angriest road rager. So the angriest road rager, and in quotes, it's in high school, I was known for blank.
10 seconds on the guitar.
Oddly enough, being the designated driver and taking everybody everywhere calmly.
In high school, I was known for going over the hills and far away to grandmother's house.
I was known for cutting off all the other teenagers in the hallway in the passing period.
You know what I was known for in high school? Cutting off my jean shorts.
That's pretty good. Also a Gen X reference.
In high school, I was the shortest man on the wrestling team, and I could fight anybody, and I lost it. I got nothing.
Anytime I found a bird upside down, I would go over there and flip the bird.
That's a good one.
That's great.
Giancarlo, you got to pick somebody who just won this game. Oh, man. Which, by the way, everybody did the same voice. We morphed into the same guy,
Yeah, we
which
did.
makes no sense.
That's the road rage.
I think that
You overcome.
Well, and I think Giancarlo did it to us. I think that he somehow illusioned us into being the same character.
That's called mentalism if you start messing with people's brains. I do know that there's that difference.
You can't do that in the Catholic Church.
Right, that's right.
All right, who won?
Psychological illusions. I gotta say Paul because
Good
because
job,
because of the
buddy.
character.
Yeah.
we
that
all
was-
did. Yeah.
Bird. Yep.
The bird was a good
It was the
setup.
bird. It was the bird.
Thanks.
I was like,
Well, congratulations, Paul.
Thanks.
62 points on the board.
Wait, why six? Last time it was like 77.
Because of how many at-bats we all just had.
Oh, touche.
It was very painful. Well, good. Well, listen, for being our celebrity judge today, we have a surprise for you.
oh,
So this comes from our sponsor, Sockreligious, and we have a pair of socks for you. But I thought, how appropriate right around the Easter time when we're recording this, and also given your focus on the transcendental and faith, we're giving you a pair of socks that are the empty tomb.
Oh my gosh.
So you have empty
That is
tomb
awesome.
socks.
I haven't even seen these. These are amazing. I love soccer religious, but I've never seen these socks.
Well, they're yours now, and
Sure. Thank
I
you.
hope when I see you on the TV that I'm able to catch it.
What are you, 70 years old?
On the
The
TV.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey, this is Nick from the BeatiDudes. Check this out. If you're a business owner or marketer targeting Christians in your community, Decided Excellence magazine can help you reach that goal. Decided Excellence publishes monthly magazines to thousands of homeowners in your area. So whether you're a home services business owner, a Catholic school trying to grow your enrollment, whatever it might be, Decided Excellence can help you find your next customer. Visit decidedexcellence.com today and start growing together.
Hi, it's Paul Kolker from the BeatiDudes here, and I just wanted to share with you guys that I also, outside of the show, perform improv comedy on a regular basis with a group called Divine Comedy. So what we do is we come up with everything on the spot, so whether you're looking for faith-filled, fun, family-friendly comedy for your youth night, or whether you're looking for clean comedy for your corporate event, Divine Comedy can perform for your group and even get you in on the action. So if you'd like to hire us to come out and perform for your next event, check out DivineComedyImprov.com. Divine Comedy, an inferno of fun.
Hey y'all, this is Jeff Scheffelbein. When Nick and I set out to start our new company, Undivided Life, we were really concerned about how would we cover the healthcare needs of our growing families and we were so excited to find a company that fit both our medical needs and our faith beliefs perfectly. It's called Solidarity HealthShare. It is an ethical alternative to traditional health insurance. We're never part of sharing in the medical costs of anything that goes against the teachings of the Catholic Church, making it a great alternative for Catholics and Christians alike. Solidarity is very affordable, which is perfect for a large family or for a new and growing business like the one we've started. So visit joinsolidarity.com today so that you can get started with us.
Welcome back, everybody. Sitting here with Giancarlo Bernini,
And all my buddies.
the Magnificent. I don't know. I'm going to add that in there.
Dude.
I'll take it. That works.
Giancarlo, dude.
Dude, he is a dude.
Total dude.
And one of the things that caught me from the first segment there, Giancarlo, was the word inspiration and your reflection on that. That's something I hadn't heard before. You said your dad showed you a magic trick, but I feel like everyone had that experience. There was something that must have inspired you to continue beyond, that junior high or elementary school. Like, everybody has that moment of magic is awesome, and you continued down that path. Like, how did that happen?
Well, I kind of feel like growing up, I was into magic before I was into magic tricks, if that makes any sense at all.
Go further.
Watching
It does not.
right. It's probably doesn't.
We are not magicians.
No, my favorite movies growing up were Aladdin and The Sword in the Stone, and all these movies with magic in them. I was fascinated by them. Right, Disney World fascinated me. And then my parents, were very weirdly lenient about letting me do crazy things. So when I wanted to build like an epic treehouse with like tunnels and stuff, like they let me try and helped me with it. And when my at one point my grandmother, I was a little kid, she had this attic which she transformed into what we called Peter Pan's cave. And it was just this giant game room.
Amazing.
And then she turned it into like, we called it a secret agent hideout as I got older. So growing up, it was kind of like this thing of like, they were just really good about letting me do crazy things, like just chase imaginary ideas. So when my dad teaches me this card trick, then I was like, this is the closest thing to real magic that I've ever experienced. And then how can I now take this and do something crazy with it, right? At the same time, also awkward kid, really hard time making friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So card tricks become an easy way to socialize, break the ice, kind of a social crutch. And so it was a tool for me to make friends. And recently, once I gained self-confidence, really learning through magic, it became a way for me to go, okay, now instead of it being something to serve myself, how can I make this something to serve the people around me?
That's awesome. Man.
And thanks for putting that out there too, because I don't think everybody realizes just how much that the passage of in our weakness, he is strong, right? That somehow in those moments where we think we might look back and say, oh, those were moments of weakness or those were moments of awkwardness or whatever you want to call it, somehow God works in that to bring about something greater where now you are going around all over the U.S. and inspiring people and helping them maybe realize that, hey, this is something I could do or I should follow this passion.
Right. And one of the things that I've been struggling with more recently is like the feeling of, I guess, for lack of a better word, imposter syndrome of going to do a show. Like I'm on my way to do a show at a parish event where I'm supposed to talk to the kids about how to follow Jesus, quote unquote, or whatever the theme is. And I'm feeling like my prayer life is in the toilet right now. I'm not praying enough. I haven't been in confession. Like who am I to stand in front of these kids and talk to them about Jesus and how to follow Jesus when I'm doing such a bad job of doing it myself? And learning, this is so recent. It's weird even talking about it, but learning, God's like, yeah, you should be praying more. You should have gone to confession. I still want you to do this show because I still want to use that.
Yeah.
And just being okay with that and not letting the temptation and the lie of, oh, you're not good enough to be doing it, or you can't do this until you're good enough to be doing it.
Well, good on you too, because you're not using the fact that you're invited, you have the mic, you have the stage, as an excuse to not have to keep going further, to not pursue your relationship with Christ, as if you've somehow plateaued or you're okay because they called me to be here. That doesn't change the interior journey that you're on with Christ.
Yeah, no, but it's actually scarier because of some of the events with some of the other people on the panel. Like, they're people who look like they have their, everything together. And that's the other thing I've been learning is no one has everything together.
True.
It's an illusion.
But you hear that all the time, like, nobody has everything together. But it's like, no, really, no one has everything together.
That's right.
And learning that has been weirdly comforting. Of like, we're all striving, and we shouldn't. That's not an excuse to be complacent, but also like, God uses you as you're growing, not until you've finished growing.
The story of all the people that played into your life, your family, and Peter Pan's attic, whatever we called that.
Secret agent mission.
Yes.
something.
Like the way this all played out, it's almost like, it sounds contrived. Like, let's make a magician.
That's what I'm saying.
Enablers.
Yeah. But I think, like, if in hindsight, I'm curious kind of their view of this, but if I'm one of your family members, if I'm somebody who contributed to this, I also would sit here and say, I see God's hand working through my past when I was raising Giancarlo, introducing him to things, letting him be free to explore and express and not have the pressure of being the popular kid that, has to fit a certain mold, because now you're impacting literally thousands of people on a regular basis, both online and in person. So I feel like in hindsight, anybody can see that God's hand was working through them as well. What's that relationship like now that you are a magician? Is there, I might be asking you to divulge all the family secrets here, but is it pretty interesting for your folks to come and see a show or know what you're doing?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I remember the moment, because I kind of remember telling my parents I wanted to be a magician, and they were like, okay, we're going to go to college and you're going to get a degree, and then you can try this, and if it picks up, then you can go do that, but you're going to get a job, right? And it was like sophomore year of college or freshman year of college that I did a ticketed event. First time I'd ever done a ticketed event.
Wow.
It was the first semester of my freshman year, and second semester I did another one, and my parents were able to make that one. And I just told all my friends, tell all your friends to come, and we were doing a fundraiser. And it was packed, and it was trying not to be arrogant here, but it was a really good show.
Yeah.
and I was really proud of it for what I was doing.
Awesome.
No, it was a great show. And my parents were in the audience. And afterwards, I remember the moment that they were like, we think you can do this. This is a thing you can do. Like, if you keep doing this, you can be a magician. It just became real for them. It became like a,
good for them.
oh wow, like he can actually do this.
And good for them for having the courage to even encourage that, especially at that age when you're sitting there with the pressure of like, what firm are you going to go work for when you graduate from college? Incredible. Well, we want to play a game with you. It's called the BeatiDudes game, TBD, and we have our BeatiDudes cards here. So we're going to be going through a question for you, but all four of us are going to answer this question. It's not even a game. That's not true. This is just a conversation starter. We encourage everyone at home to ask the same conversation of whoever they see next in their life after listening to this. But a simple question, reflect on a time for us that was one of the most trying times of your life. What is one of the most trying times in your life? When I ask that question, what kind of sparks up or jumps up for you in that question? Paul or Nick want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, something that springs to mind anyway was just the discernment process and taking the risk to go to seminary and I mean, and even kind of like what you're saying with, putting on this show, right, where you're taking a risk to put something out there and saying, is this going to be the right thing? Now, it turned out, in your case, that was the right fit, and for me, it was, okay, well, I felt like I needed to give this a shot, but then what does it look like afterwards when I determined that wasn't the correct course for me? And it was with a lot of prayer and guidance from my spiritual director and everything. And I think people do need to realize that you can enter seminary, but you can also, like, that's a dating sort of relationship, so to speak, where you can then say, all right, well, maybe that's not who I'm called to spend the rest of my life with. And but then on the other side of that, leaving seminary, I remember having a real kind of dark night of the soul of, well, where does that leave me now? And especially since that was my identity, basically, was a Dallas seminarian for 3.5 years, or I think that's about right, about 3.5 years. And so, who am I now? What does that mean? Am I actually still following God? And did I just make this decision selfishly? And there's all those kinds of doubts that can creep in. So that I would say that moment kind of right afterwards was just tricky in terms of feeling a little lost at sea.
Thanks for sharing that. I actually think we should do an entire show on what you just described. It goes very deep, I think, into like a process of discernment, a process of ego in discernment, like discerning out of something has a play of like, was I wrong? Am I going to look wrong?
Did I waste that time?
Yeah.
Or
what are they going to think of me?
Yeah. What is my home parish going to think? Who's been rooting for me? That kind of stuff.
Your pictures on the wall.
Yeah.
Why don't we just cover that up?
Put a sticky note over it.
Draw a mustache on that guy.
Don't know him. Who is Paul Polker?
And why does that K look like a P?
That's awesome.
Yeah, how did I turn a K into a P? I don't know. Anyways, it should have been call.
Rolker.
Yep, got it.
There we go.
Nicholas?
What's coming up for me in high school, I broke my leg playing football. And this is at a time where I just turned 16, so I just got my driver's license. I played football, I played basketball, I ran track. That sort of was then taken away for the better part of a year. And I remember in the hospital just, turning to tears, not because of physical pain, but because I was realizing what was getting taken away from me. And the, letdown of not being there to support my teammates going into basketball season or track. And that was, probably one of the first like real struggles I faced. Like had a blessed childhood and that sort of thing, but that was like real impact and left a mark.
Yeah, you kind of just have a big hole where you were getting so much of the time and the connection to and the validation of everything you've been working on. Now you're kind of stuck. Literally, it was a really bad break, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I broke my femur and I was in a wheelchair for 3 months, and so
the big one.
Yeah,
had to learn how to walk again. And this is at a time where I'm very athletic and I want to get faster and stronger every year, and I'm really getting into that season. Everyone has those aspirations like maybe I could play something in college, and that just kind of all got wiped away.
I'm one of these guys who loves to share trying times. So listening to y'all, I was like, oh yeah, I can remember something like that. I can remember something like that. So in listening to y'all, I came up with a different answer, which is when I was starting my sophomore year at A&M, I had basically gotten to this place where I thought I was kind of above everything from a brazen, independent, and really self-loathing person. It was like a dark time for me. And the way I dealt with it was drinking. And then in drinking, but it wasn't alone. It was like a party drinking, like a masking the pain by being the life of the party drinking. And wasn't afraid to drive a car when I did it. So I was guilty of that several times. By the grace of God, I got pulled over about 1 o'clock one night and was guilty of the crime and had not been in any sort of an accident. And I can tell you that even in an inebriated state, there was this moment of, oh, thank God, this is the beginning of a new chapter. Like it's the end or the death of a chapter.
Wow.
I cried when they cut off this bracelet when I was, they're like checking you in. It's not a check-in. I think they're booking you, but they're like cutting off this bracelet.
Welcome to your stay at our palatial estate.
Will it be a queen or 2 twins? So when they're cutting it off, I remember like one of my mentors had given me this cool bracelet from Guatemala. And I was like, this is devastating. It's just a little bracelet, but it meant something to me. And it wasn't getting caught. It wasn't getting punished. It wasn't pleading guilty. All those things I was actually totally fine with. It was being such a giant letdown to my family, being the youngest kid and having to work through this process of telling my parents that I actually had been arrested. All these good things have come of it, and we can talk about that some other time. But it was a trying time to be a good kid that, I can remember, all these like biblical references of honoring your mother and father, and that was just would tear me in half. So that was a dark time, but I'm so glad that the story is what it was because it caused me to be formed into being who I am. So what about you, my friend?
Yeah. I think I briefly alluded to it earlier, but this time specifically with the pandemic and with COVID, I graduated college in 2019. So I go right into, I'm going to be a full-time magician. And not only does the entertainment industry just die in like 3 months, but I also had left this community of people that were my super close friends. And I now need to move to a new city and make new friends. And suddenly I can't make friends. Oh. And growing up, like I said, having a really hard time making friends, I kind of always felt like I needed to stay relevant and felt like I have to secure and check on my relationships and maintain relationships and try hard to keep my friendships. So that's why, a lot of the tricks I was learning was, I need to learn something so that I have something cool to show my friends tomorrow. Otherwise, they're going to stop being interested in me. Oh. And that's a feeling that persisted. So even, through COVID, just the pandemic, not only not being able to go to mass and not being able to go to Bible study, but also not being able to make friends in the new city I was in, and just being alone was like a crippling loneliness where I with anxiety and depressive symptoms thrown in, that was just a mess that I was wallowing in of like, what is happening? And it's weird because it's all in my head, but it's still worse than anything I've experienced like physically, if that makes sense.
Well, but it's also not just in your head in the sense that we're called to communion, right, is the whole idea. So we're called to community. We're called to, obviously, the sacrament of communion. But yeah, so when you're cut off from all of that and you are isolated, that's a physical isolation that then you're just feeling on an interior basis. But it is, isolation is a form of torture as well.
For sure.
Or it's used that way.
And the stories we tell ourselves, right? Yeah. That's the most powerful narrative in our lives. Right. So if that's the one that's on repeat, that can get you.
I think the timing of when COVID hit for everybody that has the same story that you have, that's a pretty unique time. And I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt the high school kid, the college kid. There's something about that the entrance to adulthood gets completely wiped out. Yeah. I think everybody has their own pains from it. It's a lot different to be, a man that has 4 kids when it starts, and my house is a zoo and there's no downtime ever. Like, I was in a very unique spot where somebody who's established in their career for 20 years or their neighborhood for 3 years, like all those things can play out a lot different than you graduate and move and now the world shuts down. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think a lot of people can connect to that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. I never really talk about that.
Well, it's part of the TBD deck that is going to be online for you to purchase soon. Do you know what I didn't tell anybody earlier? That you can get BeatiDudes discounts on sockreligious.com by going to sockreligious.com/BeatiDudes. What a weird time to bring up a plug, but that's how we lighten it up. But you know what? What we just did here, I think, is a great example of authentic fraternity. So this is a Christ-centered friendship opportunity, and that idea that we cover wit and wisdom, humor and holiness, and everything in between. I'm glad to be your friend with or without the magic.
Yeah, appreciate that. Love getting to know you guys as well. Like, you guys are awesome, and I'm so inspired by things like all the cool stuff you guys are doing, like this podcast. Like, this is what the church needs. It's awesome.
Right. That's right. Well, we're happy to hear that. So we're going to do a cool thing to finish out. Have you ever heard of reverse Simpsons?
No.
Okay.
Why would you even ask that?
Have now.
Just to see if he watches the other show we did.
Oh, fair.
Fair.
So The Simpsons starts every episode differently. There's always nuances. We finish every episode differently. So what we're going to do is a very special reverse Simpsons, never been done before. That's why it's called reverse Simpsons. And we are going to introduce you on stage one at a time. And we're going to pick out 3 cards here, 3 letters, and each of us has to use, in our introduction, our 3-word introduction for you, a word that starts with each one of these letters. The first letter is V. You see, this is random. Like, I'm not doing some sleight of hand, right?
That's I'm watching.
Zero impressive about what I'm doing right now. The next letter looks like a D. And the last letter for introducing Giancarlo, and we can do these in any order, doesn't have to be in the same order, is a 1. I mean, a 9.
Ladies and gentlemen, now introducing Giancarlo Bernini, the very dynamic introvert.
That's so accurate.
Does that work?
That was very good. Introducing the man with the incredible vernacular, the dynamo, the dynamic, Giancarlo Bernini. What do you got?
Where did your eye come?
Incredible vernacular.
Oh, I missed the incredible vernacular. I just caught the 2 D's.
Yeah.
I doubled down.
Well, on the D. All right. I got this. ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to meet my very delightful friend.
What?
friend?
Do you only know him via text?
We got very close during COVID over the internet.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Giancarlo. Thanks for being my friend for all these years. Last comment from you as we close out the show and get ready for the bonus, where Giancarlo is going to be sharing a magic trick that you're going to want to tune in for vocally and visually.
That'd be on YouTube.
Check us out on YouTube at @the_BeatiDudes.
At Shift 2. Last comments from you as we close out episode whatever.
As we close out this episode.
Yeah, no, just that not only am I grateful for this, but I love, magic, podcasting, music, the guests that you've had on here, and just all the way that the church is kind of using so many unique things to spread the gospel is kind of exploding right now, and I'm in love with it. So I'm grateful that you guys are doing this, because this is good for the church.
And how can people stay in touch with you? How can they follow you? How can they book you for a show?
CatholicMagician.com. It's my URL. Like I said, it's not many of us. I hopped on. I just feel like, it's available.
Nice.
CatholicMagician.com. Bernini Magic on Instagram. Also BerniniMagic.com for non-church events, so like secular, like corporate events or colleges and stuff. BerniniMagic.com.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to see you on the bonus show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today to what we're going to call a magic podcast. I heard you say magic, podcast, but what I interpreted was magic podcast.
Is this an Oxford comma situation? No, that's the wrong thing.
You just hit his love language.
This is true.
This is
I
Nick's
love
jam.
Oxford commas.
Oh, it's crazy, like all day long. Oxford comma, like
All day long, really.
He loves English, grammar, comma, and Oxford commas.
And spreadsheets.
Yes, and spreadsheets. That's right. Some cells.
My friends, the BeatiDudes, all of you, and Giancarlo, until next time, we'll see you in the Eucharist.
This podcast is part of the Spoke Street Network. For more great podcasts, visit spokestreet.com.